We are just now in the midst of a forced remodeling program. During this process, there are many painful experiences and troubles that I did not predetermine as part of the work, but they come automatically, naturally. Here are debris, chips, dirt, dust, grime, with what we have to bear. Nevertheless, they can be turned into a benefit for us. If someone steps on a rusty nail that has been left in a board, and I can bring out a remedy that overcomes all the bad effects, then this remedy will be prized by the user all his life and made known to others who may need it. I did not decide that he should step on the nail, but now, since it has been done, I am able to control it and turn it into a decided advantage. I think this illustrates in a feeble way God's method. You say that you are impaled on the horns of the dilemma, created by the idea that some sins are only indirectly chargeable to God. In the foregoing, I have solved this dilemma, if such it is. But how can you solve this one which I am impaled on? If it is, as some others teach, that every sin and all the vileness and corruption flows directly out of God, how can the vile flow out of the Holy One, the unclean out of the clean, the bitter out of the sweet fountain, etc.? Does not the word declare this to be impossible? James 3:10. And this one, that God has admonished man to live in holiness and virtue, but at the same time he, God, has determined that man shall have no choice in the matter, as he has made him a machine that cannot do anything but what God has decided for him to do. To me it seems that it makes God's directives of holiness a farce and a sham. And this, that according to our sense of justice, which we believe to be a God-given ability, he commits the greatest injustice to man when he says that whatsoever man soweth, that shall he also reap, when he has arranged it so that man cannot sow anything but what he does. No one can save me from these horns, but fortunately they are man-made just in order to hold on to the peculiar idea that God is the originator of every bit of destruction, corruption, and vileness. There are certain propositions that allow of no middle lane. It is this and nothing else. Such is our problem before us. Either every sin, every violation of the divine moral precepts, every missing is directly out of God, or it is not. If directly out of God, predetermined beforehand so that it must be thus, or God has forfeited his right to be considered the ruler of his universe. No Bible believer would concede that. But then there is only one other possibility, that certain things are not directly out of him, but only relatively and indirectly out of him. To equip intelligent beings with a moral sense, spend a tremendous amount of effort in teaching them right and wrong, and then make it impossible for them to carry out his teaching of right, then punish, discipline, and correct them for having done the only thing that he had decided for them to do, would be the greatest contemplated injustice imaginable. On the other hand, if he gave them ability to commit both good and bad, no matter how limited such abilities were, and then taught them good and evil and gave them a certain amount of liberty to practice his precept or do otherwise, then I can see harmony, justice, and wisdom in such arrangements. Your position makes man a robot who cannot act in any way but what his maker has decided for him to do. And when he has done that, his maker vents his wrath and displeasure because he has done what he wanted him to do. Is this sense or nonsense? But if God has planned to control all the potentialities which he himself endued man with and transmute the evils that man commits into good, if he has made himself responsible for the happy outcome of it all, then no one can cast any aspersions on the Maker for having subjected his creation to vanity and corruption, no matter how much evil has been committed. The idea that we must take the expression all out of God to mean nothing but directly and positively It is one of the strangest ideas concocted by man's cockeyed brain, and I cannot see the least support for it, neither philosophically nor scripturally. It does not express absoluteness, but relativity. Only by taking it in that sense can we harmonize it with common sense and the rest of the scriptures. God bless you, brother. May the Lord lead us on. E.A. Larsen. This letter has been slightly revised compared with the original. A copy of it was sent to a friendly critic and competent student of the Word. He objected to certain expressions and thoughts which call for a few remarks which I hope will help to clarify the subject further. He objected to the idea that God has endowed man with tendencies to evil, so I changed this to potentialities, next to last paragraph. I do not suppose anyone will deny that all the potentialities in Adam, which of course he transmitted to all the race, was put in him by his Maker. If they were not, where did they come from? I hold that in these potentialities were also the tendencies to both evil and good. He also objected to the idea that evil and sin in man is a negative condition. If we view it as such, he avers, that we may just as well agree with Mrs. Mary Baker Eddy that sin and evils do not exist. I cannot see that we are logically compelled to go to that extreme. I really believe that the solution to the problem lies in this and similar expressions. Negative and positive are words expressed relatively. When I say that sin and evil in man is a negative condition, I mean that it is not something that has been put in man, but his absence of the contrasting virtues. Let me try to illustrate. The idiot is not such because more idiocy or imbecility has been put in him than those who are normal. He is lacking intelligence, and that is a sore evil. The consequence of this evil is that he misses or sins. The natural thief is not such because a greater amount of dishonesty has been deposited in him, but he is lacking in the virtue of honesty, and this is a negative condition, a sore evil. Weakness is lack of strength. Sickness is lack of health. Darkness is lack of light. Cold is lack of heat. Negative conditions. Whether or not a certain characteristic in a person or an experience is negative or positive depends upon its relation to either phases of life. It is a matter of relativity. When my foster mother took me over to the bushes and provided a birch twig to dance on my rear end because I failed to get up in the morning, or I had lost a cow or sheep from the herd, then to my back and to my feelings, it was a grievous and sore evil. But it built into my makeup something that I am yet grateful to her for. The grievous evil, when related to remote results, was the greatest good. A man died here the day before yesterday. The same day he said, "I have to die, but I want so much to live." He was a very sick man. Death was his greatest enemy, the greatest evil. But it brought the only relief that could come to him. It brought sweet rest. It was, when related to his future and God's purposes for him, the greatest good that could come to him that night. Related to the immediate feelings and comfort of the patient, his surgical operation is a sore evil, but related to his future health and happiness, it may be the greatest good. Applying all this to our problem of evil, we can agree that the trying experiences of mankind, having been by the Creator subjected to vanity and corruption, Romans 8, is a sore evil, but the results of it shall be glorious beyond contemplation. My brother asks, "Why do you say that immature fruit is evil?" I did not say that it was. I said that the unripeness of it was an evil. Any imperfection is an evil, but it is only a temporary condition which the process of ripening is supposed to overcome. So also with man, he is immature, he is unripe, unfinished. He is yet in the process of creation. The Creator will see to it that his work is finished. This is what I mean by saying that God is responsible for all the results of sin and evil in the world. He is the primary first cause. Had he decided on a different course and different experiences for mankind, he would have brought his plans to completion in his own predetermined way. If it was contrary to God's intentions that sin and evil should infest the human race, then we are forced to deny his omnipotence. If we admit that it was in line with his intentions, then he must be responsible for all its results, or he is deficient in love. The point that I tried to bring across was this: the greatest amount of sins that man commits is a consequence of his immaturity, his unripeness, if you please, and not necessarily predecided acts by God. There is no necessity, neither from the standpoint of Scripture nor by the nature of the case, to impose upon God the charge of directly imposing on man to commit all the dirty, infernal acts of ungodliness of which he is guilty. May God illuminate.